In the heart of Hollywood, where the streets glimmer with celebrity ambition and rooftop parties, whisper promises of belonging, I built a life that looked perfect from the outside. I'm Alina Rhodes, a 36-year-old entertainment publicist known for turning scandals into comeback stories. My husband, Micah, is 39. He's a children's book illustrator with a gentle soul and a heart as wide as the Pacific. In a city that runs on ego and bravado, Micah is different. Soft-spoken kind, a little quirky. He writes bedtime rhymes and knits scarves for the local shelter. And I used to think that difference was our greatest strength, until one night everything cracked open. That Friday, I'd invited a few friends from the industry to our place in the hills. Just a casual dinner, nothing dramatic. I'd been planning it for weeks. The guest list was handpicked: Cami, my fashion designer friend with a sharp tongue; Darren, a reality TV producer who never filters a thought; and Leo and Bianca, a couple from my PR firm known for their banter and brutal honesty. I thought we were just gathering to unwind. But I didn't realize, until it was too late, how Micah's quiet presence would become the target of every so-called harmless joke. He spent most of the afternoon in his studio working on an illustration of a hedgehog who learns to love his curls. I thought it was adorable. But I also knew our friends wouldn't see it that way. As the sun dipped below the skyline and the wine started flowing, my nerves tightened. Maybe I should have called it off. Maybe I already knew the storm that was coming. Dinner started smoothly enough. The conversation buzzed with talk of upcoming projects, casting calls, and LA traffic nightmares. But soon the energy shifted. Cami glanced at Micah and asked, "So what's new, Picasso, still drawing cartoons and crocheting pillows?" Her tone was light, but the dig wasn't subtle. Leo laughed too loudly. "You mean Micah the masculine? He's like if Mr. Rogers and Etsy had a baby." I forced a laugh. Everyone did. Except Micah. He smiled gently and passed the bread, but his hand trembled just enough for me to notice. Then Darren jumped in. "Dude, do you even own a toolbox? Like, what do you do when something breaks?" "Write it a poem." It didn't stop there. Bianca asked if Micah ever felt weird not being the alpha in the relationship, especially with a wife like me so fierce and on the go. Even I didn't know how to react. I made a joke to diffuse it, pretending I wasn't feeling the walls closing in. But Micah's silence was louder than any comeback. The worst came during dessert. Darren leaned in, wine-glazed and grinning. "Micah, man, you should pitch a kid's book called The Sensitive Husband. Maybe throw in a knitting tutorial at the back." Everyone laughed, everyone except Micah. That's when he stood up. Micah rose from his chair slowly, but with a gravity that pulled the whole room into stillness. The clink of a spoon dropping onto a saucer was the last sound before the silence swallowed everything. His eyes moved across the table, not angry, not wild, just done. I used to think he began voice steady, but thick with restraint, that being myself was enough. That maybe if I stayed kind, stayed small, stayed soft, people would leave me alone. He paused, looking straight at Darren, then Cami, then me. But being soft makes you easy to crush. No one dared to interrupt. Micah never raised his voice. He didn't need to. "Y'all think I don't hear it, that I don't see the looks. The way you chuckle when I say I knit or illustrate books, or God forbid talk about feelings. You think I'm less of a man because I don't bulldoze my way through a room, because I support my wife instead of competing with her." Micah's voice cracked slightly, but he didn't stop. "And what stings the most isn't your jokes. It's that you all say them right in front of her." My breath caught. He looked at me now, just me. "And Alina," his voice softened, but the wound was unmistakable. "You don't laugh because you think it's funny. You laugh because you're scared. Scared they'll think I'm dragging you down. Scared they'll say I'm not enough for you. Maybe you even believe that?" The room spun. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to apologize, to do something, but shame kept me frozen. "I've spent years trying to be invisible in a world that punishes men who don't fit the mold," he said. "But I'm tired. I'm tired of shrinking." Micah stepped away from the table, walked to the patio door, and looked out toward the city lights below. You all enjoy your cake, he said calmly. I'm going to go breathe where I'm not being laughed at for existing. Then, without another word, he slipped outside and closed the door behind him. The silence he left behind was heavier than anything I've ever felt. And in that silence, I realized something brutal. I hadn't just failed to defend him. I'd joined in their cruelty by doing nothing at all. The moment Micah closed the patio door behind him, the air in the room turned icy. No one moved. No one dared. Darren cleared his throat, but his usual smugness was gone. Cammy sipped her wine, eyes wide, with something that looked a lot like guilt. Even Sienna looked away, suddenly interested in the condensation on her glass. I sat there, rooted to the spot, my heartbeat thudding like thunder in my ears. My cheeks were burning, not from embarrassment, but from shame. I had let it happen. Again. The very people who were supposed to celebrate Micah's brilliance, his kindness, his depth, his soul, had instead chipped away at him for years. And I, his wife, the one person who should have stood between him and their mockery, had become complicit with my silence and nervous laughs. I didn't mean anything by it, Cammy finally whispered, eyes darting toward me. We were just joking. Were you? I asked. My voice was brittle sharp. Because that joke felt more like a slow-motion character assassination. No one answered. I stood up, grabbed Micah's untouched plate, and walked it into the kitchen. My hands shook. The clatter of silverware against porcelain felt deafening. I needed air not from outside but from within. I needed to face the part of me that had chosen acceptance from others over loyalty to the man I married. When I stepped outside onto the patio, Micah was seated on the bench, his hands folded in his lap, staring out at the sparkling grid of Los Angeles below us. He didn't look up when I approached. I sat beside him, letting the silence settle before I spoke. I read somewhere once, I said softly, that betrayal doesn't always come with violence. Sometimes it comes with complicity. Micah's shoulders rose and fell slowly. I didn't protect you, I admitted. Not from them, not from myself. I thought blending in would shield us. Instead, it buried you. He looked at me finally. His eyes weren't angry, just tired. I don't need you to fight for me, Alina, he said. I just need to know you see me. I swallowed hard. I do now, and I hate that it took tonight for me to really hear you. He didn't respond right away, but after a long pause, he reached for my hand. You can't undo it, he murmured, but maybe we can start again. I nodded, and in that quiet, with the buzz of the city below and a full moon above, I made a vow not just to love him, but to honor him, publicly, boldly, without apology. Because the cost of silence is far too high, weeks passed after that dinner. Micah and I didn't rush to fix what broke, we unraveled it, slowly, layer by layer. We had long late-night conversations where vulnerability bled into silence, and silence morphed into understanding. We re-examined how we let our friends, our culture, even our childhoods shape what we thought marriage and masculinity were supposed to look like. Micah kept painting. He turned our spare room into a makeshift studio, and each canvas became a page in his story. His truth poured out in strokes of violet crimson and gold. Sometimes I'd sit and watch him, tears welling in my eyes at how much of him I had once missed by trying to make him fit into a frame he was never meant for. And me, I started unlearning too. I quit apologizing for loving a man who didn't fit the mold, and I stopped trying to shrink him so others could feel comfortable. Because I finally realized their comfort was costing him his dignity. One night we hosted a small gathering, just close friends. Some new, a few old. Darren came, sober, quiet, but changed. He approached Micah with something rare in his eyes, humility. I owe you an apology, he said, voice low. I laughed at your strength because I didn't understand it, but I do now, and I'm sorry. Micah nodded. No fireworks, just a soft, thank you. That moment it mattered. Not because it undid the harm, but because it acknowledged it. Now I want to speak directly to you, the one reading this, watching this, feeling this. If you've ever stayed quiet in a room that made someone small for being soft, different emotional speak, if you've ever laughed along to avoid discomfort while someone else bore the weight of that laughter, apologize. If you've ever doubted your worth because the world told you who you should be, stop listening. Be loud for the people who live quietly. Be brave for the ones who are still finding their voice. And if you're the one who's been mocked, belittled, overlooked, you are enough. Not in spite of who you are, but because of it. This isn't just a story about Micah or about me. It's a mirror, and I hope when you look into it, you choose to see more and do better. This story is more than a moment of social awkwardness. It's a powerful reminder that the quietest people in the room often carry the heaviest burdens. At its core, it challenges us to rethink what we define as strength, especially in men. For far too long, society has boxed masculinity into outdated molds: stoicism over sensitivity, toughness over tenderness. But as this story shows, real strength is found in vulnerability, in the courage to speak truth when silence feels safer. We often laugh off comments that sting, calling them just jokes, unaware of how deeply they wound. The lesson here is twofold. First, that love must be active, not just in private moments of affection, but in public acts of defense and respect. And second, that silence in the face of ridicule is complicity. Whether it's a partner, friend, or colleague standing up for someone when others tear them down is not optional, it's necessary. For anyone watching who's ever felt the pressure to conform or who's ever stayed quiet when someone they love was being diminished, let this be your wake-up call. Emotional safety is just as important as physical safety in a relationship. It's not enough to love someone, you have to show up for them. Speak up, step in, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not laugh. Be the voice that breaks the cycle. Be the partner who protects, not just loves.